Welcome back to the Game Collection. Last time, I talked about Soul Blazer, an action RPG by Quintet that sparked a loose collection of games which some refer affectionately to as the Soul Blazer series. Today, I get to talk about the next entry in the series. I'm Super Derek, and this is Illusion of Gaia. Illusion of Gaia is another action RPG by Quintet, which was released in Europe under the name Illusion of Time. Development began immediately following ActRaiser 2 and was localized by Nintendo to the United States in 1994. The game was built from the ground up, featuring large sprites, combos, 3 playable characters, special charged moves, and more. In fact, at first glance, you'd probably wonder how anyone would consider this to be in the same series as Soul Blazer, which is a pretty valid question. Illusion of Gaia was developed under the title Soul Blazer: Illusion of Gaia, but the Soul Blazer series is actually more of a loose collection based on recurring themes such as reviving a dying world, getting tangled up in a battle between good and evil gods, and recurring locations and characters. Lastly, all of the games were developed by more or less the same team. In Illusion of Gaia, you play as a teenaged boy named Will, whose father went missing while they were out exploring the Tower of Babel together. Will lost his memories of the trip, but decides to set off on a journey to find his father and, of course, save the world in the process. This journey takes you to several real-world locations, including Aztec ruins, the Great Wall, and the Pyramids of Egypt. Unlike Soul Blazer, though, Will isn't a silent protagonist. In fact, he often narrates the game, which is pretty unique. Even so, he still suffers a bit from not really having much of a voice or personality of his own. As with Soul Blazer, this puts the focus of the game pretty much on the supporting cast, including several of Will's friends that accompany him on his travels. They're the main drivers of the drama within the game and are the sole sources of character development. In Illusion of Gaia, when you arrive in a new town, there's usually a puzzle of some sort that you have to solve in order to unlock the next dungeon. Dungeons follow the typical Zelda formula where within a dungeon you're presented with obstacles which can only be overcome using items or skills acquired within that dungeon. What's excellent about the way that it was executed in Illusion of Gaia is that the skills you have acquired maintain their usefulness within combat throughout the rest of the game. Speaking of which, combat in Illusion of Gaia is worlds apart from Soul Blazer. Soul Blazer was solid but rigid, but Illusion of Gaia is fluid and it's very fun. The game introduces dashing, dash attacks, charged attacks, and jump attacks. And with the ability to switch between 2 other playable characters for set portions of dungeons, you'll never really feel like you're getting bored with the combat. Leveling up your character is achieved by defeating every last enemy in a room, at which point you're given more hit points, attack power, or defense. The one drawback for me though was that once you complete an area, you can't really go back to it. Unlike a lot of other games in the genre, the world never really opens up for you to go exploring for missed power-ups or other hidden red jewels. Soul Blazer featured mandatory backtracking, but Illusion of Gaia forbids it. Illusion of Gaia was, for a long time, what I considered to be one of the prettiest games for the Super Nintendo. But after playing through it again, with a more critical eye, I can see that there were a few corners that were cut. Almost none of the backgrounds featured parallax scrolling, so you're missing that nice depth of field that you had even back in some parts of Soul Blazer. But that's really just a nitpick though. As you can see, the game sprites are nice, big and detailed, and well animated too. Also, the towns and the dungeons are nice and varied too. As a matter of fact, I don't think that there were many, if any, assets that were reused between towns or dungeons. The music of Illusion of Gaia feels big and booming. Exploring the dungeons and landmarks feels big and dangerous because of the great soundtrack, and the touching moments within Illusion of Gaia are all that much more memorable because the music was there to back it up. Thanks to the help of some great marketing by Nintendo of America and Nintendo Power, Illusion of Gaia would go on to sell 300,000 copies in the United States alone, more than quadrupling the sales of its predecessor. The game shipped with a thick instruction booklet which is essentially a complete walkthrough of the game. Due to this massive success, Illusion of Gaia is a much more common game than Soul Blazer, and by extension is a lot cheaper. As a matter of fact, right now the game costs less than even Breath of Fire, a jaw-dropping $18. Illusion of Gaia was a huge step forward for Quintet, who was really beginning to master their craft on the Super Nintendo. But before the end of the Super Nintendo's lifespan, Quintet managed to really rock one out of the park and outdo themselves yet again. But we'll talk about that next time on The Game Collection.